Who is it?
You're 2 hours late.
Hey, what do you think, DeShore? Should we take him with us?
Definitely.
I can't. I have work tomorrow.
Come on. It'll be fun. I promise.
Yeah. Sure.
So many allusions to Alice in Wonderland throughout our culture and in our language. Down the rabbit hole. Mad as a hatter. Of course, that was a phrase and an historical truth long before Lewis Carroll, but he made it famous for us. The Cheshire Cat grin. Off with their heads. Curiouser and curiouser. And what a strange world we live in. Wonderland, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and Jabberwocky. All these are references that permeate our language. And the references are all over film, too. Not just The Matrix, which I think we know well, but in Transformers, The Revenge of the Fallen, the original Avengers movie, and A Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors. The novels of V.C. Andrews and Neil Gaiman, TV shows like Desperate Housewives, episodes of CSI, Warehouse 13, Lost, and even Scooby-Doo. There's even a reference in an episode of Last Airbender. In music, Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit. But also, I Am the Walrus by the Beatles.
I am the Eggman. They are the Eggman. I am the Walrus.
The entire persona of Alice Cooper. And a whole series of EDM festivals all on the Wonderland theme. Theater like Cirque du Soleil all make references to Alice in Wonderland. Must we know Alice to understand the references and allusions? When we find these in today's culture, do we have to have read Alice to understand them fully? For those who haven't read, or not earlier read the story, actually, what do we do with John Lennon's lyric in the Beatles song? And what can we do with it if we don't know Alice? Literature speaks to literature across the ages. How much do we have to know? Now, if there are allusions of Alice through our culture, so too does Alice in Wonderland itself have allusions to history and other culture. The trial by the king and queen, which involved the illogic of the prisoner's handwriting, is clearly a reference to the corrupt French courts of the 1860s, where the king acted as a judge to mete out justice on his own terms, twisting language and truth. I mean, this was clearly obvious to anyone from Victorian England. Or is it a parody of Britain's own court system? The red and white rivalry in Through the Looking Glass references the traditions and odd behaviors during England's War of the Roses. The Queen's frequent "off with his head" mimics Queen Margaret of that era as well. If we imagine the caucus race to refer to a political caucus where candidates are on a race for election, is this a statement about how the political process works? Children's poems, of course, are parodied and altered throughout the work, and they're turned into plot points. The Queen of Hearts, She Made Some Tarts, is played out right through the trial. What about the Duchess's child pig reference? Is that a reference to then Queen Victoria's hatred of children? Or of Lewis Carroll's hatred of children? Or were these references and allusions more local, more personal? Is the Dormouse's Twinkle Twinkle Little Bat a reference to Bartholomew Price, who was Carroll's former teacher and who had the nickname of Bat? Must we know the allusions to understand Alice? How much research do we have to do to discover what Carroll was up to? If we miss something, does this mean that we're more likely to be misinterpreting the text? How much of an author's or artist's life must we learn to understand their writing? And if this is asking too much of readers, what's reasonable to ask of readers? Should we just ignore these connections completely? That seems like intentional ignorance.
It's getting late and I can't seem to find my way home tonight. Feels like I'm falling down a rabbit hole, falling for forever.
However you answer those, I want to approach one more idea here, and that's adaptation. Know that there are dozens and dozens of creative works of Alice in Wonderland that have been adaptations. 23 film and television adaptations for one, and that doesn't even include the weird ones like Betty Boop in Wonderland or the Flintstones, Japanese anime, the Care Bears, Hello Kitty, several horror films including the Resident Evil franchise, and Alice in Murderland, even a horror video game. All are the entire story of Alice in Wonderland retold. Colleen Oakes authored a work called The Queen of Hearts, a dark and kind of adult reversal where the queen is actually good. The Tim Burton film reshapes the story for an older Alice to end the queen's reign. Looking Glass Wars trilogy by Frank Beddor explains that Carroll's version wasn't the true one, but his is. Gina Showalter's series of the White Rabbit Chronicles has Alice versus Zombies, of course. A.J. Howard's Splintered series traces the mental health of the real Alice's descendants. But adaptations somehow affect the meaning of the original, even displacing it. How many of you knew the Disney version but had not read the original text? How does Johnny Depp's Mad Hatter affect the way we understand the character when we read him? How does Disney's Delicate Alice affect our understanding of the sometimes rude or indignant one we met in the text? Which Alice and which Hatter is the one we mean when we reference them now? If a famous song suggests a drug trip, or a TV show suggests an insane asylum or an eating disorder, does this influence our reading of the original? What strategies or solutions should we as readers consider when dealing with these questions?
Come on, with everything falling down around me, I'd like to believe